Welcome back in, everybody, to Birds 365. Joined now by Bob Brookover from NJ.com. Bob, welcome to the show, man. How you doing on this Thursday morning?
Morning, guys. How you doing?
Brookie, good to see you. I think week one after Saquon performed, we got a lot of Saquon guys. Jeff Kerr's a Saquon guy. Brookie covered Saquon up with the Giants before he got here for the Eagles. Boy, it looked good. Week one, adding him to the mix of a bunch of playmakers. And you saw it from the other side when it was Saquon with a bunch of non-playmakers. What was the difference from your perspective?
Well, an offensive line that he never had. Last year is running behind a 290-pound offensive tackle after Andrew Thomas got hurt. Justin Pugh was the left tackle, but the whole line was a disaster with the Giants. But you could still see Saquon's greatness even behind that offensive line last year. I'll go back to the Green Bay game. Two Green Bay games that I only covered one of them, but I watched both of them. The first one was in London, and Saquon was the absolute difference maker in that game when the Giants upset the Packers, and it kind of was the trigger for them to get to the playoffs that year when they weren't expected to. And then last year with Tommy DeVito, a quarterback, the Giants shocked it. It was Tommy DeVito's biggest night. But go back and look at that game, and without Saquon Barkley, Tommy DeVito doesn't have that night because Saquon Barkley was incredible. And you could see that with the Giants still. It was why I thought as soon as he said, I'm not sure I want to be a Giant for life anymore, I was like, the Eagles ought to jump on this right now. And they did. And I wonder how much sleep John Mara lost Friday night.
I don't think Brian Daboll and Joe Shane are going to survive this. I don't. Even though, by the way, Brookie, I think they made the right decision for that team at this time, and the Eagles made the right decision for their team at this time. But I don't think people see that context of it.
Yeah, I'm not sure if the Giants made the right decision 2 years ago when they decided to pay Daniel Jones instead of
no question.
I think that they needed to move on from that quarterback, and they didn't. And so would Saquon have been different than with a different quarterback? I don't know, because that offensive line, I'm still not sure it's fixed. They took some measures, but nothing extreme to fix it. But anyway, I don't think the people watching this want to talk too much about the Giants.
No,
I don't think Saquon,
it's part
I know
of it.
Saquon doesn't want to talk that much about the Giants anymore, because when I started talking to him about it before the Packers game, he was like, well, not my problem anymore.
Well, I think they do like the fact that the Giants are struggling and not going to survive this and get to spike the football over, what was. I still say Dexter Lawrence is the Giants' best player. They have some good players, Andrew Thomas, as you mentioned, but he's a very good player and he fits here. But boy, the touchdown, the wheel route, AJ and Devontae were both running sort of mirrored in-breaking routes on that particular play. And half of the Packers back seven just went with those two. And all of a sudden you got Saquon leaking out with Isaiah McDuffie one-on-one. That's exactly what Kellen Moore's looking to do. That was
absolutely. It was a great beauty. Pass. It was a great catch to get his both feet in. The Eagles have just become such a pick your poison, because it doesn't matter who you decide to shut down, because over here is something else, and which Kellen Moore kind of alluded to yesterday in his first post-game press conference. Saquon beat you this week. If you want to game plan for Saquon, the Eagles are going to be ready to beat in another. The one thing that Packers were able to do that they really seemed to be doing in that game, they didn't want to seem to get beat by Jalen Hurts' legs, and they didn't. They figured out a way to keep him from hurting them with his legs. But there were so many other, you give the ball to Saquon, you throw the ball to Saquon, and A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith just beat him all day long. I mean, so there's so many different – and Jahan Dotson didn't even get involved, but he's going to at some point. And Dallas Goedert did a little bit, and he's going to get involved more at some point. This team has a multitude of ways to beat you.
Yeah, no doubt that offense has so many weapons all over the field. And you see it, Brookie, with 34 points on the board with 3 turnovers. What's the level of concern on the turnovers, or are you just chalking it up to some week 1 rust and September is the new preseason?
Well, I think the 2 interceptions were bad decisions. And I thought Kellen Moore's answers to that yesterday were interesting too. He kind of shared in the blame, and maybe rightfully so, especially the first one. You know, that's where the routes were being run. I'm sure there were some checkdowns. I wasn't at the game, so I only saw it on TV. But maybe there was a check down there. But that's where the routes were being run, and they were trying to get a first down on a 3rd and 15 play. I mean, the first 2 plays were a disaster. The fumble, slip and fumble, or not fumble, the slip put them in a 2nd and 15 immediately. You know, maybe they should have been a little more conservative there, backed up in their end. But they were aggressive, and I'm sure that's Kellen's going to be Kellen's approach to be aggressive. Level of concern, yeah, you don't want to see 3 turnovers in the game. You're not going to win most weeks with turnovers, but you're also not going to – how many teams could score 34 points with 3 turnovers? Yeah. After those 2 early turnovers, they scored on 6 of their next 9 drives. I mean, which is just an indication of how powerful this offense can be and how many points it can be. I'll go on record right now saying that I think that most of the Eagles have ever averaged in a season was 29.8. The 2014 team averaged 29.8 points per game. That's going down. That record's going down.
All right. Bold prediction from Bob Brookover. We like it early. Now, to me, the Jalen stuff, I'm a little bit concerned because I've been in the camp that typically Jalen has taken very good care of the football. He's been very ball security conscious throughout his tenure as the starting quarterback. And that sort of turned last year in the negative direction. That was one of the major problems, turning over the football too much. And here we are, week 1. And forget it. I'm not even talking about the fumble because that was a miscommunication. I think they'll clean that up as Kellen Moore operation tush push, which Saquon was able to recover. I'm not even worried about that. But when you talk about the 2 interceptions, there were 2 other throws that should have been interceptions. Dropped the pick 6 right before the interception in the end zone. And then there was a slant to A.J. Brown, Brookie, where A.J. turned into the defensive back and kind of took it away from Jair Alexander. That's a lot of turnover-worthy throws for a veteran quarterback, to the point that Jalen got a very poor grade from PFF that everybody's upset about. Not that that matters, but the point is he doesn't usually do that. That's why he got that poor grade. How concerned are you over that many?
Actually, the 2 almost picks were probably worse than the 2 actual picks. Because, you know, he's just trying to make a play deep down the field. On the other one, I don't want to say it was almost the same as a 4th down punt, but they were going to, you know, without a completion there, they were going to be punting from the 5-yard line. So it wasn't that much different than what they were going to be doing. The one in the end zone was bad because, and I think that one was just, he didn't see Jair Alexander dropping into coverage there. He all he saw was AJ Brown open in the end zone, and he didn't see Jair. But the other 2, I mean, AJ Brown saved him on the one by just breaking it up. The other one was an interesting play. As I went back and watched the game, they ran that same play successfully where they looked downfield and then wanted to try to get it out quick, trying to get attention down there. But this play, there was just nobody open down there. He wasn't open. Yeah, he's just got to eat the ball. He's got to make better decisions than he's made. You know, made in that game and made many times last year. He's got to make better decisions. Having said that, I didn't necessarily agree with the PFF grade because, I mean, only 4 quarterbacks in the league threw for more yards than Hurts. He also threw 2 touchdown passes, and I thought he was absolutely brilliant on the last drive.
On the last drive, he was. I agree with you. They have to weight that stuff more.
Right.
You can't tell me watching Bryce Young. There was so much bad quarterback play.
Right.
But But the difference was even the worst quarterbacks, and there were a bunch of them in week one, they didn't make that many turnover worthy throws.
Right.
So you get really graded down.
Right.
And people get too fired up about that
Yeah,
stuff. But it's worth saying, look, you can't do that as a veteran quarterback. The Caleb Williams of the world, the Jaden Daniels of the world, they played very, very poorly, but even they didn't do that. So I think that part of it's a legitimate concern.
Right. It is. Great quarterbacks have been known to be Brett Favre, probably at the top of that list, being aggressive and not always making the right decisions. But I will say this, he continued to be aggressive and successful. Despite those mistakes, it didn't make him gun shy. Let's put it that way.
That's what I think is the best part of Jalen's game, Brookie, is he's so relentless. You could have him pinned down for 55 minutes and he might make a play. And those other quarterbacks, if they have a bad day, they kind of just get in their feelings or whatever, and their day's over. They're going to be a
Jones would
disaster.
fall into that category.
Yeah. He's like Vic called the Packers offense an all-day sucker. You got to play him all day, 60 minutes. That's what Jalen is as a quarterback. You
Absolutely,
can't assume he's going to make 4 bad throws and the next one's not going to be perfect, like to Saquon.
Right. And even being shut down in the run game the way he was the other night. But then when he needed to have one on the 2nd and 8 play, he was stopped 2 yards short, but he wasn't because he
carried him. Yeah, carried him.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's plenty of positive. I agree with you, but I'd be lying if I said I'm not concerned about some of the decision making.
I would agree. And but to me the most intriguing part of that is if that gets cleaned up, what can this offense?
Well, to your point of the predicting the record offensively, according to PFF, that was the worst start of Jalen Hurts' career as a starting quarterback. And they scored 34 points and put over 400 yards of offense.
Yep.
So
absolutely. My bigger concerns are on the other side of the ball.
Yeah, we'll get to that. To that. Start with I want to talk about Bryce Huff, but before we get to Bryce, Nakobe Dean starting middle linebacker. Vic confirmed it. I think a lot of people are surprised by that because Devin White took so many first-team reps during training camp. To me, it became clear later in camp Nakobe was going to be the guy. How surprised are you that Devin White is sort of an afterthought?
Yeah,
before week one.
I'm in the same corner as you on this. Devin White didn't really flash at any point during the training camp or the preseason, and Nakobe Dean did. Nakobe Dean is still, and this game was kind of an example of that. Made mistakes, got beat on some, his eyes got caught in the backfield sometimes on coverage plays, but he also flashes at times with enormous hits that can, change the tone of a game. It's just, it's one of those things that feels like, and in this league, it's weird to say because Devin White's not that old, but it's like it just feels like the younger guy has the legs and the ability, and the older guy just is. It's kind of, he already lost one job last year to KJ Britt in Tampa Bay, and now he's lost another, and you wonder. Guys, especially guys who crash into people, linebackers and running backs, get old fast in this league, and it seems like Devin White might be getting old right before our eyes.
Bryce Huff. Let's take it to Bryce Huff. I think Zander's you're frozen, Zander. I don't know if he can see it, but we'll continue, Brookie. Right. With Bryce Huff, I think it's smart. And I think one of the few things that Vic Fangio and his reputation bring is the ability to do certain things that may not and we're going to continue, even though we're all screwed up on the screen. But may run out, people can at least hear us, and they don't want to see us, Brookie. They might want to see you, but they don't want to see me.
This is my best side.
But with Bryce and Brandon Graham, I thought early, I kind of threw this out there. I thought it was counterintuitive to a lot of people, but I said, Brandon's got nothing left to he can let the gas out of the tank, whatever he's done. This is it. He's confirmed numerous times, and he's still a great run defender. So Vic can say, perfect example, Sean Desai could not do this last year. If you pay Bryce Huff $51 million, he's got to be on the field. Vic can say, you know what? Brandon's a better run defender. I'm going to play him on first down. I'm going to get Bryce Huff out there as a pass rusher. And I think ultimately, if it works, nobody cares. But the field kind of screwed things up. I mean, nobody wants to make the excuse because the Packers had the same issues. But if you look at the pass rush for both teams, Brookie, it wasn't there. And those guys couldn't get their footing, couldn't get their explosion. So for 1 week, I don't know about you, but I'm giving Bryce Huff and Nolan Smith and Josh Sweat and everybody else, Jalen Carter, I'm giving them a bit of a mulligan on the pass rush.
Yeah, and they ended up with 2 sacks. It's fine. They were both Zach Bond sacks. But like when I go back and look at Josh Sweat's game, Josh Sweat drew 2 holding penalties. His first play of the game was a tackle for a loss. By my simple math, which is the only kind of math I know how to do, that's a minus 22 for that. Josh Sweat was accounted for. And I thought he played a better game than maybe some people gave him credit for. Bryce Huff became the big story. You're right about the footing, and both sides talked about the footing. I mean, it's not like it's not like it wasn't there. It was there, and both teams acknowledged that it was there, and it was a problem for both teams. It's one game, and Sirianni makes a decent point too. Bryce Huff played 2 fewer snaps than Brandon Graham, 1 fewer than Nolan Smith. So they were all playing about the same amount. And I think Brandon Graham played 32, and Sweat played 40. Sweat played 41. So they were all, they were all in the field about the same amount. And when Vic was asked about it, he said it could be like that, or it could be, he basically what he was saying is, I'm going to play the hot hand, or I'm going to play who's the better player. And you could see through training camp and at the end of preseason. I think I asked Vic, I said, you're going to count on Brandon Graham, aren't you? He goes, if you're asking if he's on a pitch count, he's not on a pitch count. And then his quote yesterday was better. I can't remember it off the top of my head.
He's not on some retirement.
Right. This ain't no retirement party here we're having. This is you playing football, and because you can still play. Yeah. It was great. It was a great quote. I love listening to Vic.
Yeah, Vic, I by the way, a little inside baseball. I'm surprised they give us Vic first. Obviously it's schedules, but it's like he's playing the main lounge, and he should be going third, or Michael Clay's got to go third after Vic Fangio and Kellen Moore. That's not savvy. Yeah, and you got to have Vic playing the big ballroom. Everybody's there for Vic Fangio because he's so entertaining and he delivers. It's funny, Brookie, when I ask questions of Nick Sirianni or Kellen Moore, or in the past, the previous coordinators, I always try to ask it more thematically, because, if you ask about a player, they're just going to give you the coach speak.
Right.
With Vic, you don't have to worry about that stuff. Just ask him about the player, and he's going to tell you what he thinks at that moment.
And sometimes it's in one word. Yesterday, like, could Cooper DeJean eventually end up in that slot spot that Avonte Maddox had a little bit of a rough game on, especially the one series. But he's like, possibly, yeah. It's just, it's all honesty.
Well, and it's great. It's such a breath of fresh air. But since you went there, that's the other position on defense. I think you leave Quinyon Mitchell outside. I know Avonte struggled a little bit, but I don't want to mess with Quinyon Mitchell. I thought the early returns were great. He gave up a couple plays, but Green Bay was really focused on him to the point they didn't even look at Slay.
They didn't throw. So they were.
Yeah, they were testing him again and again. I thought there were a ton of positives. I don't want him in the slot, Brookie.
I
I you
agree.
know,
I
I
agree.
mean,
If you want to let Cooper DeJean fight it out with Avonte Maddox, I'm fine with that. But or whoever else you want to put in that mix. But I would put those two in the mix. Let them fight it out, and let Quinyon Mitchell be the outside guy because he's too good a talent. He's I'll hate to go back to the Giants, but I will because the Giants last year had a first round cornerback, Deonte Banks.
yeah, I like him a little bit.
I do too, but comparing where Quinyon Mitchell was at as a rookie to where Deonte Banks was at a rookie, there's no comparison. Quinyon Mitchell is just so far advanced beyond where Deonte Banks was at the same time last season. It's not even close.
Well, that's a big positive. So, because I still think Banks has a chance, but
I do
you with
too. And
Quinyon.
it's one of those positions. It takes a while to learn, but Quinyon is just advanced for a rookie, I think.
Yeah, he is. He's very savvy. And I think that surprised a lot of people because of where he played in college at Toledo. But if you can play, you can play, and it looks pretty good. But for whatever reason, I think a lot of Eagles fans, certainly on our show, I don't know about you guys at NJ.com, but they want Isaiah Rodgers on the field. And I think Isaiah is a good player. He had a good summer for the most part. But for whatever reason, despite his size deficiencies, he can't play in the slot. I mean, nobody thinks he can play in the slot, mainly because of run fits, and he's not the most physical guy in the world. But I can't be moving around Quinyon Mitchell to sacrifice to get Isaiah Rodgers on the field. I can't go down that route. I got to persevere with Avonte Maddox or Cooper DeJean. Throw Cooper in the deep end of the pool. I'm fine with that if you want. But I have to keep Quinyon Mitchell outside. I think it would be a disservice to him and the Eagles defense. And I think Vic is too smart for that.
Yeah, I think Vic has talked about, well, why did he use Mitchell? And he basically said, this was our best configuration with Isaiah being out. But I agree. Vic will figure out that, yeah, well, you know what? My best configuration, no matter what, is Quinyon Mitchell and Darius Slay on the outside. It's going to be interesting to see how the Falcons attack this week. They're obviously not as potent a team passing wise as the Packers are. But still have some weapons. It'll be interesting to see how they try to attack the Eagles this week.
Well, let's talk Falcons. Let's talk extra day. It's going to be a Monday night game. They had a very poor week one performance. It certainly looked like Kirk Cousins didn't feel comfortable coming off an Achilles tear. You mentioned they don't have an explosive offense. I think the hope was they would have an explosive offense because Cousins has a history of being a high volume thrower. Basically that guy could get 4,000 yards in his sleep most years. But he didn't look like the same guy. And they do have some playmakers with Bijan Robinson and Drake London, and they signed Mooney, who's a pretty good receiver, Kyle Pitts, Philly kid. But boy, if you don't have the quarterback and the quarterback couldn't move, to me, this is why I say I'm looking at that pass rush and saying, all right, this is the week. You got a stationary target who's not comfortable. If Bryce Hop doesn't show up this week or Nolan Smith doesn't show up this week, I think then we start to have some bigger conversations about the pass rush. But your early thoughts on the Falcons?
Yeah, I mean, this could be a little bit of a test. The Falcons did play actually pretty good defense against the Steelers. I don't think the Steelers were able to, which they always wanted to run the ball. I don't think they had much success running the ball. They didn't have much success. So it was a very defensive-minded game. I only watched a little bit of it, but when you look at the numbers, it was a very defensive game. So the Falcons played decent defense. Justin Fields is not Jalen Hurts, and the Steelers offense is not the Eagles offense. So it'll be interesting from that standpoint to see what the Eagles can do against a different defense, a second defense here. But offensively, the Falcons, they shouldn't be able to put up points. They put up 10 against the Steelers. The Eagles are going to be home. The pass rush should be there. Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis should be able to get some pressure up the middle. The Falcons' offensive line is not bad. It's pretty good offensive line. But the Eagles should be able to, being at home, this should be a coming out party for the defense. Get some pressure, win some games. And a lot of times an offense can make a defense too, because if the Eagles do put up the points there that we all expect them to be, there should be times where this defense is just pinning its ears back and going after the quarterback. And I could see this being one of those games if the Eagles can get up early, get up a score or two early, that they just start going after. Cousins.
Cousins, yeah.
Right,
But the weird week 2 anomaly, third consecutive year the Eagles will be playing a Kirk Cousins quarterback team in week 2. They're already 2-0. They hope to make it 3-0. It's really their home opener, even though it's not their home opener. They were technically the home team in Brazil, but this will be Nick Foles is getting honored. Jason Kelsey's going to be part of the Monday Night Football game pregame show. So everybody's going to be fired up, the fans. It's a tough spot for the Atlanta Falcons. At Brookover, make sure you follow Bob on the X platform. You can read him at nj.com. Does a great job there with our buddies Chris Franklin and Caden Steele covering this team. I'll leave you with Mekhi Becton because I'm sort of like, and Mekhi I thought was great, but I think the Packers, just what I said about the Eagles defensive front, same thing with the Packers defensive front. Like I came into that game, Brookie, and I said, ooh, Kenny Clark against Mekhi Becton playing his first team. That's a big advantage, Packers. Didn't work out that way. It was the complete opposite. I'm not sure if that was because of the field. So this week it's Grady Jarrett, who's a really good player for people that don't know, against Mekhi Becton. Not all the time, but you can bet a vast majority of the time the Falcons will try that out. Raheem Morris. I'm kind of the same way with Mekhi Becton's Bryce Huff. It's just Bryce played poorly because of his, he was the one on skates. Mekhi played well, but is that because Kenny Clark was on skates? So are you sold on Mekhi Becton as a right guard?
No, you got to do it every week. And one of the questions about Mekhi Becton with the Jets was just him staying healthy. So he's got to do it over an entire season. I thought it was a great start for him at a new position. He made some terrific blocks on Saquon runs that were pointed out. And the one thing you just notice is just how big and strong he really is. Now, when he gets up against a pass rusher and with a guy who can put pressure in the middle, Jurgen's the same thing. How are they going to hold up against somebody like that? But another thing the Eagles did pretty well as a team was they handled the blitz pretty well. The Packers didn't come that much, but they handled it pretty well in this game. That was not really a factor at all, which was a real concern coming into the season. Can they handle the blitzes?
Yeah. I'm surprised how much the Packers didn't blitz. I was expecting more. Maybe it had to do with the footing. Maybe
it could have. I mean, the footing was definitely a story in itself in that game. So it's going to be different Sunday. It's going to be different going forward. Teams are going to, and Kellen Moore alluded to this. It's a back and forth. Every week is a new season because teams see something, think they can exploit. They'll try to exploit it, and then how do you counterpunch? Mekhi Becton's going to face different things that he hasn't seen before as an offensive guard that he never saw as a tackle. How's he going to handle it? It's going to go a long way toward just how good this offensive line is.
Yeah, and it could be really good if Mekhi gets. I saw my buddy Ross Tucker said he was born to play right guard. I don't agree with that. I said Ross, the dude's 6'8", with the longest arms in the world. He was born to play left tackle. But hopefully he can play left guard at a high level. He's done it for 1 week, and if he does click, that'll be the. I don't know if it'll be better than Detroit. I don't know how much you saw Detroit, but that is a good offensive line.
Cool,
Brookie.
really
But
good.
they'll be right there with that group. If Mekhi Becton can play at that type of level for the entire season, and that's the type of level Bob Brookover covers the Philadelphia Eagles, that high level. And I'm not worried about you in week 2, Brookie. I got a lot of confidence in you.
Start worrying about me about week 15 or 16.
Week 15. All right, we'll start. Too many touches by week 15. Is that what we're saying?
My old legs don't hold up all the time.
Yeah.
My old
Same
brain.
here. Same here. I was injured for 3/4 of training camp, so you know how that works. Good to see you, Bob. I'll see you later today.
All right. See you, John.
Yeah, big practice day for the Eagles down at the NovaCare Complex. Typical Wednesday, now on Thursday, because it's a Monday night game. It'd be nice to get back to a normal schedule in a couple weeks.
I can't wait for that.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Brookie.
All right. See you, John.
See ya.